Okay, awesome. Good evening, everyone. You are here for the Post-Bac panel. And today we have with us Case Western Reserve University, Georgetown, and Tufts University. So we're really glad to have representatives from each of these Post-Bac programs here to talk more about their individual programs and also answer questions that you may have. So please, throughout the presentation, utilize the chat. This session is being recorded, and so if you would like your information not to be added to the recording, this would be your opportunity to change that. Without further ado, I will allow our first presenter, Ms. Samantha Baker, to be able to kick us off.
All right, thank you so much, Sari, and thank you to everybody for joining us. And I'm going to share my screen here. I think hopefully everybody can see that. So like Sari said, my name is Samantha Baker. I am the Director of Admissions for the Medical Physiology program at Case Western Reserve University, the mouthful, so we usually just say MSMP. We are one of a number of different post-bac programs that we do have here at Case, and so I'm happy to chat about those or mention those as well if students do have questions. But our program was started in 2011 with the sole express purpose of helping students become more competitive applicants to medical school, dental school, PA programs, and other clinical programs that you might be thinking about. I'll throw out like the anesthesia assistant program as well. So most of our students are coming in with those plans, and we work to help them become more competitive. We are located within the School of Medicine here at Case Western. I think I said we're in Cleveland, right? I don't know, but we're located in Cleveland, Ohio. We're the top medical school in the state and always in the top 25 medical schools, at least as by US News and World Report standards. This is our class profile for our most recent class. So I just wanted to highlight this. We are one of the most diverse programs on campus. And in terms of representation, not only across the country, but also internationally and also by race and ethnicity. We also have the option for students to do the program online or in person or even a hybrid approach. And I'll talk a little bit more about flexibility in a bit. And so as you can see, we're having about 60% of our students who are here in Cleveland on campus, and then about 40% who are online. And that has been a shift from, pre-COVID times where we were more like 70-30. I think now we could probably expect that this kind of pattern will continue, but who knows? And so that's more of our breakdown now. So why are students looking to apply to our program in that kind of post-bac, world of different programs? So the medical physiology program, we have different pathways to professional school programs. We don't just focus on medicine. So, I would say anywhere from 80 to 85% of our incoming class is interested in applying to MD and DO programs. But about another 10% are interested in dental programs, and kind of the remaining 5 to 10% in any given year might be looking at other professional clinical programs. We have a very engaging and rigorous curriculum that is specifically designed to be like that first year of medical school or other professional programs. So the faculty who teach and advise in our program also teach in the MD curriculum here at Case Western, and so they were able to use that knowledge to develop our program very intentionally to follow the medical physiology textbook, but also to kind of be aligned with what it's like to be in that first year of medical school. So like a body systems approach, you have 4 blocks in the fall, 4 blocks in the spring during the core curriculum, those types of things. There is flexibility built into the program as well. I sort of mentioned already the ability to be fully online if the student wants to. They can also be here fully in Cleveland. They can also take a hybrid approach. So we have students who will start online and move to Cleveland later on, mostly because they're looking to take advantage of Cleveland's healthcare hub and the different partner institutions that we work with and that students can have opportunities with, which I'll touch on in a little bit. Online students can attend synchronously or asynchronously. So for example, they could attend class live while it's happening. This works really well for students who are in our time zone, or they can watch the recording later on. That works better for students outside of our time zone. So kind of just depending on, what else the student has going on in their life, or, kind of where they're located. But resident students have access to those streams and recordings too. So you may have heard that, it gets pretty snowy here in Cleveland sometimes. And so if you look outside one day and you're just like, I'm not going to campus, as a resident student, you have access to those same recordings and streams as well. So that flexibility is built in. The students can also go full-time, part-time. Usually, students will need at least 4 terms to complete the program, but can do it in as few as 12 months. We also have supportive faculty advising. So every student would be assigned to a faculty advisor who they would work with throughout their time in the program. Not only on how to do well academically, because most of our students are coming from a background where they want to enhance their academic records over their time in the program, and also potentially get involved with other enrichment experiences if they're looking to enhance their clinical experiences or research, et cetera. So their advisors are there to help them with that. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention Cleveland. Sorry, I have multiple screens. So if you're like, why is she looking everywhere? That is what's going on here. But as far as being in Cleveland, we're one of the top healthcare destinations, I guess, in the world, if that's how you look at it. And growing up here, I never really truly appreciated that until I left and then moved back home. And I'm going to touch on some of the activities that students can get involved in as well. With this slide. So as far as enhancing the enrichment experiences and enhancing your kind of activity section of your professional school applications, there's plenty that you can get involved in. Case Western is very uniquely positioned in that we have 4 partner institutions, healthcare institutions that we work with. This used to bother me a lot more when I worked at a competitor medical school, but now that I'm here at Case and it benefits my students, it's so wonderful that they can get clinical experience, shadowing experience, research, both basic science and clinical research, volunteer experiences. We're located kind of within Cleveland's cultural hub, within University Circle. So there's so much to get involved with and just, overall enhance your time in the program if you're here in Cleveland. Now, I have to say we have online as well. So for our online students, we're also going to advise them about experiences that they should get involved in to enhance their academic or to enhance their kind of activity section of their applications, but be more general advice. We may or may not have connections within whatever city you're located in. So. Oops. Oh, well, then this is our list of application requirements, but I can get into that later, or if students have additional questions later on, please do let me know. So I'm going to stop my share here and pass it off to, were we doing alphabetical by name or by institution?
By institution. Go ahead, Dr. Whitney.
So I think it's
Thanks,
me next,
everybody.
but actually before I move on, there's a question for the Case Western.
Oh,
SMP, so
didn't
if
see
you want
that,
to answer
sorry.
that first.
Let's see.
Can you see it, or do you want me to read it to you?
Oh, is it from Deirdre here?
Yes, from Deirdre.
So do students take classes alongside the medical students? What mentorship frameworks exist to aid students in becoming acclimated to your school and program? So great question. Or questions. So our students do not take classes alongside the medical students. So our curriculum is only for our students. So this also alleviates any issues of like, registering for classes or trying to, get a class that your, other colleagues might be trying to register for. So there's no like race to register for classes as you may have experienced in undergrad, or at least I know I did. So our our classes are only for our students, but they were developed after by our faculty who also teach in the MD curriculum. So just to kind of give you an idea of how they've developed these physiology courses. So there's medical physiology, translational physiology, and then a selection of elective courses as well. And then mentorship frameworks. So every student is assigned to a faculty advisor. They're also assigned to a peer advisor who's a second-year student that has volunteered to help students kind of make that transition into graduate school, or to Cleveland, or wherever it is that they're coming from, to kind of make a smoother transition into our program. And then we also have a team of teaching assistants who are sort of go-to people and just kind of how to approach studying. This is a new like volume and pace and content that you might not be used to yet, and that's fine. There's always a learning curve, and so the TAs are really great to connect with to help you through that process. And just make sure that you're being very successful. And we also have an academic consultant who will come in to do more like time management, study skills, those types of things. So less content, but more sort of the practical considerations. So hopefully that answers your question.
I actually had a quick question as well.
Please.
Can you clarify, you said you usually need 4 terms, but could potentially do the program in 12 months. So if you're talking, and I assume 4 terms, meaning 2 years?
Yeah,
That's either 1 year or 2 years, right? That's a big difference.
It is. We actually have 3 starting points throughout the year. So students could start spring, summer, or fall. And so it depends on whether they are doing kind of a traditional academic years where they only do fall and spring. So that would take 2 years, but 4 terms. They can also enroll during the summer to kind of expedite that time. And then for some students, if they're positioned very well, like some students will have a really strong MCAT coming in and they're just trying to get through the classes as fast as possible to start their professional school applications. If they're in that sort of position, they might be able to do it in 3 terms where they do 1 fall, 1 spring, 1 summer. So it really is designed based on what the student already has coming in, personalized to them, in their path and what we might suggest, and what all they need to accomplish during their time in the program.
And then, so if I can follow up with that, I know some programs talk a lot about or emphasize that coursework, that it's a full, they're going to do it in a year, it'll be done in a year, like maybe some of the other people who are here with us tonight are going to tell you they're going to do it in a year, and there might not be time for research on the side, to research for volunteering or other activities. So you mentioned these other resources. Are these, I realize they're resources that are available because you've got this great new facility, you're in Cleveland, right? I mean, the location, for people who don't know, this isn't a great location. Like, this is a great, right? Are you at the new facility?
So our health education campus is located right on Cleveland Clinic's main campus. Our building is located right by university hospitals. So we're in the health research area, the biomedical research building area, and then the clinical program. So if you're MD or dentistry or PA or nursing, they're all located within the health education campus.
But is it all in that same
circle? Oh yeah.
It's
all in the same zip code. I think the Cleveland Clinic has its own zip code, but we're just just down the street.
Right. So do they have? So I guess the thing is do they have time to partake, and participate in these other things?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think it goes back to what the student is trying to accomplish in that time. If they're trying to accomplish all of that, doing it in 1 year is just not really feasible. And we wouldn't advise that. So when the student is coming in, they're going to meet with their faculty advisor to figure out what's the best path for them. And if it's 1 year because they already have, 517 and they've done all the things and they are just trying to enhance that GPA, that might be a good path for them. But then they'll only have time for schoolwork and they won't really have time to do anything else. So it really depends on the student and what they're trying to accomplish. We have advised, and we do advise every year, students to take their time and to take more time in the program so that they can do these other things. And most of them who come to Cleveland at least want to do those activities. Like they want to network within Cleveland Clinic and UH and attend Grand Rounds or get a clinical research position. So I think a lot of students, I think, will come in with the idea that they want to get out as fast as possible. And then after orientation, they're like, oh, maybe I should take my time. So just depends on the student.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go on to Dr. Whitney.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. So glad to talk to our Hopkins students. My name is Dr. Whitney, and I run the Georgetown Special Master's Program. So I do a lot of the teaching in the program. I teach specifically renal physiology and gross anatomy. So I teach in the program and other programs and the med school and things like that. So I'm excited to tell you guys a little bit about Georgetown. So let me go ahead and pull up my slides to show you. Ignore my very messy desktop. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the special master's program that we have at Georgetown. So before I get into kind of the specifics about Georgetown, I thought I would just, since I'm coming here to Hopkins to talk to Hopkins students, I wanted to show you some Hopkins specific data. And so I apologize to all of the advisors who are on here who have seen this same data recently, but I wanted to show this to the students. So I actually just looked at our last 5 years that we had at Georgetown, and I pulled out the students that came from Hopkins to our program. So over the last 5 years, we have had 36 alum from Hopkins. And just to kind of give you an idea of who they are, just their GPA coming out of Hopkins specifically, is that they had an undergrad GPA on average for those 36 students of a 3.34 and then a science GPA of a 3.23. And so if you're familiar with the normal GPA of, those that successfully matriculate into medical school, those numbers are not particularly competitive if they were to apply with those numbers today. But when they come to a program like all the programs that you're hearing today, so when they came to the Georgetown SMP program, they were incredibly successful. So we know at least 32 of them they are all within medical school. Now, as I was telling the advisors, this is also based on the students coming back and telling us that they were accepted into medical school. So there's a good chance that these 4 are actually accepted to medical school, but we're not sure. So we do know of at least 32 that are accepted to med school. And just to kind of show you where they ultimately went, here's a list of some of the schools that they matriculated into. And you can see that quite a few of them stayed at Georgetown and got into Georgetown School of Medicine. So I think that shows right there some of the power of the SMP program. I mean, to give you an idea, the average matriculating GPA into Georgetown is a 3.8. Georgetown last year received 18,000 applications to their medical school. And these students who had a GPA of a 3.34 average were able to be successful and were able to matriculate into Georgetown. And not to say that it's better than any of the other schools, but just to kind of give you that idea of kind of the power of programs like this. So that's kind of my Johns Hopkins specific data. So I wanted to talk to you guys just a little bit about what is Georgetown like and kind of what's special about it. So what I wanted to focus today to tell you guys about is tell you guys a little bit about the curriculum that we have within the program, talk about the support for students in the program, and then just kind of get into the overall environment at Georgetown. So I think it's helpful to start with looking at the curriculum. So our curriculum is a set curriculum. We're not as flexible as Case Western. So it starts in August and it ends in June, and you have a set curriculum in those 2 semesters. So you'll be here in a fall and a spring semester, and you can see the list of classes here that our students are going to take in each of those 2 semesters. And you can see that there's a list of bolded courses and a list of non-bolded courses. So in the Georgetown SMP program, our students are taking the first year medical curriculum, not all of it, about 60% of it. So those bolded courses you see, those are their med school courses. So our students are sitting in the same class with Georgetown School of Medicine students, doing the same lectures, same problem solving workshops, small groups, team-based learning, all of that exact curriculum they're doing with the med students. They take the exact same exams as the med students, and then they're graded against the medical school students. So what that means is we take the medical students' performance, cutoffs are created based on the med school students' performance, and then they're applied to our students within the SMP program. So the grades that the students get out of these med courses are exactly what they would get if they were a Georgetown M1 students. So it's a really powerful program to say, this is how I'm going to perform in medical school. I'm in med school, I'm taking the exams, and this is my performance. So it can be really, really helpful. So the way that the Georgetown curriculum is created in the medical school is that they call them blocks, but they're like a quarter system, if you've ever had something like that, where each semester is broken in half. So there's the first half of the semester and the second half of the semester. It's block 1 and block 2. So our first block is in this red box right here. You see the list of those med school courses. Second block is here. And then in the spring semester, broken up into half. So the first half is this block 3, and then the second half is block 4. So you see that our med school, our S&P students start med school. First day of class is a medical school course, and then goes all the way through the next semester. So they're taking med school courses throughout the entire time. So a big power of this program is just that rigor. The other kind of aspect that I wanted to talk about with the curriculum is, how do we support our students, right? This is a very, very rigorous program. How are we making sure that they're getting through this really successfully? So support them through the academics, but then also these students are also applying to med school. How do we support them through the med school? So I wanted to kind of talk about the courses that are not in bold, which are the graduate courses that our students are ultimately going to take. And all of the courses, all the grad courses that are created in this program are all created to support students through their medical curriculum. So for example, this course that we named Principles of Physiology, this is a course that meets twice a week. And the purpose of this course is to take that week's medical curriculum, pull out the most difficult concepts for the students, and to give extra support, to give flipped learning, active learning, learn how to integrate that material, take that hard stuff. Let's try to make it easier. Let's try to spend more time with it. So we support throughout the entire med curriculum to make sure that our students are understanding the difficult stuff that's coming out of it. We also have other courses like Principles of Gross Anatomy, that is a preparatory course that the next block they're going to take has a bunch of gross anatomy. So we need to prepare the students for how they're supposed to go about studying for that. So we have a lot of academic support built into the program. We also, built into the program, have a lot of medical school application help. So for example, this last course that's listed here on the fall schedule, it's called our Biomedical Career Pathways course. So this course is our in-class advising course. So it's an opportunity to get you only get one easy credit in the program. And this is an opportunity to sit everyone down once a week and go over everything important you need to know about medical school admissions. So we talk about primary applications and secondaries, interviews, interview workshops, personal statements. We do all these workshops to help students work through and make sure that the medical school application they're putting in is the best medical school application they can, and that they are prepared for the cycle, and that they are going to do really, really well. Students, speaking of the medical school application cycle, students are encouraged to apply to medical school whenever they feel ready. So most of our students actually feel ready in every regard except for their GPA when they come to our program. So the majority of our students actually apply to medical school the summer before they come to the program. So our program starts in August. So most people will submit their application in June or July, their primary application to all their med schools, so that while they're in our program, they're finishing up their secondaries, they're sending out their updates, and they're going on interviews. And so the organization of the curriculum is really helpful for that, because our first block of classes, that first half of the semester, that's actually done by October 1st. And so you can see there are 3 courses they take in that first block. So on October 1st, we send out a letter of recommendation for everyone that's applying to med school and say, this student is in these med school courses, here they are, this is what the curriculum is, here are their grades, this is how they're doing. And so it can be really powerful, and then students can continue to send updates all year to those med schools. And so our success rate is really good. So for the students who are in the program, about 50% of them will be accepted to medical school the year they're in our program. And then anyone who's not accepted that year, or anyone who decided not to apply that year, applies the next cycle. And so within the next cycle, our numbers are up to like 85 or 90%. And just showing you a little slide of where our students have been successfully matriculated over the last couple of years. So you can see that our students come from everywhere and they ultimately go out everywhere. And so a lot of people do have a question about Georgetown, our linkage to Georgetown's medical school. So I just put here a slide. This is actually straight from our website. You can find this on our website for our statistics over the last couple of years of how many students we've gotten into Georgetown School of Medicine. So Georgetown School of Medicine puts our students in a special applicant pool. They are not viewed until they are done with the first half of the second semester. So for our students, this is actually next week. And that's the week that they go through all the applications and they decide who they're going to interview from our class. So our students are all waiting with bated breath right now. And Georgetown is going to interview about the top half of the class. So I have that statistics. You can see that they interview, you can see between, right, 43 is our lowest, 52 is our highest. They interview that top half of the class, and then they are going to accept about half of the class that they interview. So you can see how many people matriculate ultimately to Georgetown School of Medicine. So our lowest amount that we've had accepted to Georgetown is in the sort of like low to mid 20s, and the highest one year we did get in 53 students. So depends on the wait list and depends on how the class is sitting, how many students get into Georgetown, but it's a very good amount. So I will just, for time purposes, I'll just answer a couple of like frequently asked questions, which is, when do we support medical school applications? We support them during the year. We support alumni who apply at any point. Part of our support is also that every student is assigned a faculty mentor, who is somebody like me, who teaches in the program, teaches in the med school, but also has a really in-depth knowledge of med school applications, can help them with their coursework and their med school applications. And they're all assigned a letter of recommendation writer who will write that letter, whether it be in the program or after. A competitive application to the SMP is going to be somebody who has all the pre-med requirements, has an MCAT of at least 500, good clinical and service experience, as well as an undergrad GPA of a 3.0. We do have a lot of scholarships, so we encourage students when they apply to apply for those scholarships. As I said, the SMP is a year-long program, and so it's going to start in August and it's going to end in June. And we have kind of two deadlines, a soft deadline and a hard deadline. Our priority deadline is May 15th. We suggest you get your application in by May 15th if you can, because that is a deadline for a lot of the scholarships, and we want to make sure our students get as many scholarships as they possibly can. And our final deadline is July 1st for the program. So I think I took my time, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and either answer any questions that anyone has or turn the time over to Tufts.
I don't see any questions. I'm not sure if you got any direct to you.
I didn't get any direct ones.
Okay.
I think that just means I did a wonderful job and there are just no questions that came from it.
I think so. And so again, just to repeat, feel free to put the questions in the chat as the presentation continues, and we will definitely, you can direct questions to specific programs towards the end as well. So without any more, all you, James.
Thank you very much, Zuri. Let's share my screen here. Go to PowerPoint. Share. And there we are. Okay. So, hi everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Dr. James Cabillas. I'm the Associate Director of the MDS program at Tufts. And I'm really happy to be giving you our program overview today. I can say from experience, so Similar to Dr. Whitney, I teach in the anatomy lab. I teach in a couple of the other courses in the medical school and the dental school here at Tufts. And I've had the pleasure of teaching students from both Case Western and from Georgetown's SMP program. And I think like Tufts MBS program, students that come out of these programs are incredibly well prepared to be successful in medical school. We see the students from both and get to know them, and like the students are just so well prepared, not just because they know everything, but they're really prepared just to handle the volume of knowledge. And so I think when Dr. Whitney was talking about the rigor of the program, I think, you know, the way these programs are designed are to help really students like learn how to learn at a fast pace, really difficult concepts. And so it's really something that can be good if, you know, if a special master's or a record enhancing program is going to be the right fit for you, you really can't go wrong with any of these three. But I'm going to tell you why I think Tufts is great. So we started around 2007. So we're in our 16th year now. We are a special master's program. So completing the program, you get your master's degree in biomedical science, and we're designed to be preparation for medical school, either MD or DO, dental school, or any of the health sciences. So we've had a couple of people go to vet school past couple of years. I don't think we had anyone go to the PA. But we're right down the hall from our PA program. So if you're interested in that, we can certainly send you that way, get that out of the way. But what we're based on at MBS and Tufts, and what makes us successful, makes our students successful, whether they go to Tufts or anywhere else, again, is our rigorous curriculum. We are designed to closely mirror the first year of medical school. So the same faculty, as I'll talk about in a little bit, are teaching in the medical school, they're teaching in the dental school, and then they're teaching the MBS program. Students aren't sitting in the class with the medical students. We actually make our professors give the lectures twice. So usually what happens is they'll give the lecture in the morning to the medical school students, and then they'll come across the street to our lecture hall that's specifically for MBS. And give the lecture again over there. Students will then, at the end of our block schedule, where I'll show you in a second, students will take an exam that is basically the same as the medical school students. We're pulling questions from the same question banks, and since the course directors are all the same course directors, the fact they don't want to make multiple exams, so they make the same exams for the MBS students. And it's nice because that gives us a metric to compare students, not against each other in the MBS program, but against the medical school students. So similar to what you heard for the Georgetown SMP program. It's nice because that allows us to be collaborative and collegial, and that we're not ranking MBS students against each other. We're ranking you against the medical students and their performance on the same questions. We also don't scale or grade on a curve. So if you get, a 90 on an exam, you get a 90 on the exam. You get an A in the course, you get an A in the course. We're not moving things around or shifting the goalposts. And I'll go into a little bit about why I think that's important on the next slide. But again, back to our faculty, I'm really supportive. The same faculty are teaching medical and dental school students. They're also going to serve as advisors, and I'll talk about that in a few slides. But they're serving advisors, they're also serving on committees in the medical schools. A lot of our advisors, I think we're up to 10 out of the 20. Well, we have 20 advisors, I think 16 of our medical schools, 4 of them are pre-dental advisors, but at this point, I think 10 of them are actually actively on the admissions committee for either or both of those schools right now. So it's really directed advising that's going to help, get you to the point of being ready to apply and be successful in medical school. And with that, the program has a history of success. 80% admit rate to medical school, and like the other programs, and we don't initially get to that, within that first year. We usually build up from that 40 or 50%, and then over subsequent cycles, we get up to 80%. And similarly, we don't always hear from all the students after they've gone on. We think they've done well, but they don't always tell us. So we try to be honest and say 80% plus from the students that we do hear from. But we think it's higher, but we don't want to give you any false data. Dental school, however, we were very successful at getting folks into dental school. We have in our program now a linkage with the MD program. So it's a non-competitive interview linkage. There's some requirements. So you want to meet the MD program professionalism standards. You should have completed appropriate career exploration relating to professional medicine. So, having a good number of hours, either working as an MA or shadowing or something, you need to demonstrate to, admissions committees that you have, explored and done some relevant clinical work prior to applying. But then within our program, upon completion of the program, so it doesn't go into effect until you've completed the coursework, and we'll talk about when that happens. Basically, our program runs from August until May. So upon completion, if you've got a GPA of 3.7 or higher and achieved a MCAT score of 510 or higher, you're guaranteed an interview at Tufts. Typically, Tufts is going to interview about 54 MBS applicants. Our typical class is somewhere in the range of 80 to 100 students. So a pretty good percentage, and typically about 37 are admitted. 37 typically don't actually go there. They often go to, other schools that they got into, oftentimes state schools, just because they're going to be cheaper, might be more helpful for being close to families, things like that. I think in this year's class, this year's MD class at Tufts, it's there's 200 students in the MD class, and 33 of them are from the MBS program. So a little bit of a look at the semesters. So fall semester, and we have a set curriculum with set courses, so no registration in the fall, though you are allowed to take a couple electives in the spring. But fall semester is a foundational medical science unit. It's providing an essential framework to scaffold all the subsequent courses. And so again, it's mirroring that first year of medical school, and taught by the same faculty. So it's really those like groundwork courses. The medical school puts these under two umbrella courses, known as molecules to tissues and microbes, infectious disease, and immune systems, so MTT and MITUS. But we keep them separated out as individual courses, just so they show up on your transcript, because on an academic transcript, schools don't always know what the heck is MTT or what the heck is MITUS. They can see the courses that you have here. Also, because, we've got 9 courses spread out over the fall, if perchance, you don't do quite so well in one course, it's not going to significantly tank your GPAs too much. Whereas if you were taking only like 3 courses in the semester, that might hurt you a little bit more. So that's by design. Spring semester, big courses, physiology continues. We have pathology, the intro to basic and clinical anatomy. It's not a dissection based course, but we do get you over into the lab, which is just 2 floors below me, to look at prosection of cadavers. Then we have our intro to clinical medicine course, which is great. We just built a new sim center 3 floors down from me. So we get students in there, and that's at the end of the spring semester. We also have an MCAT or DAT tutorial. Those are part of the tuition, along with subscription to UWorld if you do need to take an MCAT or a DAT. And then we have our electives, which you can see, not a complete list of them, but really they're designed to be enriching and get you excited about, things that you really want to focus on. The curriculum is really rigorous, and so some of the other programs support is really important. So we have our faculty advisors, again, who are, faculty within the program. A lot of them serve on the admissions committee as well. They usually have 2 to 4 students in their group. They're serving as an academic partner and a pre-professional advisor. So they're giving you academic support. They're getting your grades after every exam. They're going over things with you. But then they're also giving you advising support in terms of applications and medical school admissions. And they're going to write a letter as part of the committee letter if you choose to use a committee letter from our program. Sometimes students use them from their undergrad, but we work with you to figure out what's going to be best. Along with that, we have peer mentor groups with MBS second years and alums, usually the alums that are current M1s and M2s at the medical school or the dental school. We have those MCAT and DAT prep courses that I mentioned earlier. And then throughout the year, starting from the first week, we have pre-professional workshops. So we have the professionalism workshop, basically medical school applications, career developments, like, you know, how to find like a job if you need to get more, you know, clinical experience, whether that's during the program or after the program by taking maybe another year if you need to work on it. All this sort of thing we discuss with the faculty advisors, thesis workshop, a personal statement workshop. So we do have a thesis requirement, which students do usually complete at the end of their first year. It can spill over in the summer. Sometimes students will push it out into the fall of maybe a second year. They don't have to pay tuition. There's a continuation fee, but it has some benefits, like you're still enrolled as a full-time student, so you don't have to start paying back loans. So showing that here on our program timeline. So you can complete in 1 to 2 years. Year one, it's all the didactic coursework. So start in August 2023. You'd finish all the coursework by May. And then there's the summer term where typically people are, you know, finishing their thesis off. But if they want to roll it into year two, that's possible. And many students do that. You know, as you're working on your thesis, you don't have to do a defense. You're really just writing, it's kind of like a big paper or a literature review. And oftentimes people will work full-time jobs while they're doing that. And they're, you know, in the application cycle, hopefully they're doing interviews, they're working on their thesis. They are, you know, maybe working as a clinical research coordinator at one of the hospitals around Boston. We always advise students that, like, in this year, you want to be as busy as possible. So on your application, you can write, you know, in your secondary questions, you can write that these are all the things I'm planning to do over this year. So you can look like you're going to be a busy medical school student, because that's what they're kind of expecting. All right. Another thing that we think is really helpful for our students in terms of getting into medical schools is because so many of our advisors are on the admissions committee, we do a lot of mock interviews with admissions committee members. And I think that's really helpful for, you know, like getting an interview is hard enough. But then actually, like, you know, taking that next step to getting the acceptance, we really want to provide our students with the best support that we can. So we do a lot of mock interviews. Again, second year, it's optional. If you want to do the thesis, then it's great. But with that pre-professional advising doesn't go away, or application support doesn't go away in that second year. And even if you finish your thesis and you're done, we're still going to keep advising you and supporting you until you get to where you need to go. And that's how we get to these outcomes. So I basically talked about these before. So I won't go through them again, but looking at what the typical applicant or matriculant here to our MBS program looks like, average age is about 24.25. So we have a decent number of career changers here that bump that up. This year we have a smaller class, so it's about 60 students. Typically we're in that 80 to 100 range, but, you know, we're going to take students that we think that our program is going to help. Typically students come in with a GPA of around 3.34 and an MCAT of 508, or these sort of GRE scores, but it's a big range within there. And these are the normal majors. One thing that I do want to go back to on the linkage, and this was something that the MD program was very specific about, they still interview people from Tufts MBS if they don't hit these numbers. So what they wanted to be very clear about is they're not using these numbers to screen people out, more to screen people in. So yeah, if you hit these numbers, great, they're going to interview you, but they are still taking a holistic view. They sort of silo MBS applicants out of the normal pool, the national pool, and give everyone a thorough review. So they definitely interview and accept people that don't hit these numbers, but have other qualities, whether it's life skills or distance traveled, and accept them into medical school. So that's a very important part of that linkage. So application overview, deadline to apply is July 15th. We had 2 priority deadlines back in December and January, so we've already got a number of intents to enroll this year, but we still definitely have space in the class. We have scholarships, but they are limited, and it's sort of first come, first serve. But this is what the admissions committee is looking for: 3 letters of recommendation, transcripts. I showed you the data before, so it's not too onerous. We do accept practice MCATs or DATs. You really shouldn't be taking an MCAT until you're prepared to take an MCAT, just because, the number of times you take it, can affect your application to medical school. So don't take the MCAT until you're really prepared to take MCAT. Don't just try and take it just because. If that's the case, then like practice MCAT is better. But still, you really want to prepare for that practice MCAT because you want it to look good. All right, so I think this is my last slide, but we are here in Boston, and we are a very urban campus. So there we are, we're right on the border between Chinatown and the theater district right there, but that's our health sciences campus. So I'm in this building right there. The dental building is right there, medical school, I'm in it right now, but MGH is right over here. There's Tufts main campus, MIT is there, Harvard, BU, Boston Medical Center, Longwood with Boston Children's, and everything is right there. So it's all right here. And students they just built a Whole Foods right there and a bunch of housing right there. So it's really nice for a lot of our students to live there. So contact is here, but I'm happy to take any questions. So thank you.
Thank you all. I'm sure that was a lot of information to contain in such a short time. We really appreciate it. I guess there were I know Deidre posted a question, but she said it was answered. It came right after you, Dr. Whitney. I'm not sure if you wanted to just reiterate, just in case anybody else maybe was thinking the same thing. But I think you answered it pretty extensively.
Yeah, I think I answered those questions. I think the only thing that I would say right now to the group that's here is, first of all, is just thank everybody. And the other thing, I've sat on many of these panels for many different schools, and I always really enjoy it. And I always like to remind students that there are so many different post-bac programs out there, and they are all designed for a really different kind of student. And so when you're looking at these programs and you're listening to things and you're ultimately going to go out and do all of your research, one of the things I always tell students is be really honest with yourself, be really honest about you as a learner, and be really honest about you as an applicant, and say, like, what is it that I need to do to be successful, and find that program that is made for you, right? Because there are so many, and they're all made for different students. So as you listen to these things and as you do your research, like, really think, what do I need, and find the program that you do need. So I'll just end with that. And then if there are any other questions, happy to answer them.
That's super. I agree. Each program has a niche, and you can benefit from it in a very specific way, depending on what your need is. I guess questions that I get from, since I don't see one particularly from a student, I will put one that I get as a frequently asked question as it pertains to like fit, because I think this question happens even with as they're preparing for medical school. And each of you can answer individually, but in general, when it comes to applying for your program, are there things that you find hugely beneficial when reviewing the application in the time that you have to get them from where they are to where they need to be? Are there particular experiences that are beneficial to have prior to coming to the post-bac, knowing that the post-bac obviously is really honing in on enhancing their academics as a priority?
I just gave a big speech, so I didn't want to be the one that talks. So I'll let maybe one of the other ones speak if they want to about their programs.
Yeah, so I can say for Tufts, obviously folks are coming in and needing to do some work on their GPA and demonstrate, that they can handle a rigorous rigorous science courses and the science load. But in terms of MBS, what we're also looking for is, that exploration, and basically having that wherewithal to, demonstrate that this really is the right step for you, and that you've explored the different careers, and medicine is like what is going to be most fulfilling for you, and really demonstrating that through, what you've done, and in your application and your personal statement.
Awesome, thank you.
And I certainly, second everything that's been said. And for us, if the students haven't been able to engage yet in those types of enrichment experiences or career exploration experiences, that's okay. They just need to be prepared that it might take them longer than to get ready to apply to professional school programs. So I think we're looking more closely at the academics and trying to answer the question for ourselves. And then the selection committee is composed of myself as well as 5 faculty members who are reading the applications for CASE. And so we're trying to answer, can the student be successful within our curriculum? And that's usually going to be demonstrated by some type of upward academic trends. Even if the cumulative GPA, isn't obviously where the student wants it to be for applying to professional school yet. Hopefully, they've done better later on in their time in undergrad, or even if they've taken some classes post-bac. I worked with applicants who maybe didn't get the result they were hoping for in the admissions process and have suggested they take additional coursework, and then they've been able to reapply and be successful in getting into our program in the future. So that's something to keep in mind. If you get a denial or you're rejected from a particular program, that might not be the end of the story. So I'm always happy to, meet with students and talk about ways that they can make their application more competitive for our program. And that will inherently obviously make it more competitive for professional schools in the future too. I also like to recommend that students, kind of think also about their endpoint and think about what medical schools they might want to apply to in the future after a post-bac program. So, some students are going to be, or some schools are really research heavy, and some schools are very focused on community service and being in underserved communities. And so that can help you decide on some activities that you might want to engage in before your post-bac or special master's program too, to kind of position yourself nicely for those applications that you'll be eventually filling out for professional school programs.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point, but I would kind of say very similar things. We're looking for students who have those requirements for applying to med school. So having a good amount of and a good variety of clinical experiences, having those good service to underserved populations, research, and then a good upward trend on the GPA. Those are all really wonderful things. And then I think the X factor for students that come in and are really successful in the program is those that are really ready to work and really ready to sort of like put the pedal to the metal and really study hard. And I think a lot of that comes through with a good personal statement that really says why they want to come. So that's what I'd say for us.
That's really helpful. I guess as we kind of round out the session, if anybody has any other questions, you can either raise your hand and ask it or put it in the chat. But for our panelists, if you have any information of how students can get in touch, if they have additional questions, whatever contact information would be preferable, if you put that in the chat, I will also include it in the information with the recording in the future. So thank you. I don't see any other questions. We really appreciate the time that you've taken this evening to be with us and the greater Baltimore community as well. I don't know how many we have here. So Dr. Kelabis, you put up, so you can download that if you're in the chat. For those that are accessing it, you're able to download that information as well. Okay, well, if we're all good with last thoughts, I think that we are reaching the end. I'm going to stop the recording really quickly. And we appreciate your time. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. this evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great